The great chamber floated in the silence of space, a massive structure of crystal and metal that orbited a peaceful world covered in gardens and quiet seas. Inside, representatives from 47 species gathered in a circle, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some breathed methane, others required extreme cold, and a few existed partly in dimensions the others could barely perceive. But today, they all shared one emotion. Fear.T-Min stood at his station, his slender fingers trembling as they touched the data screen. He was Veloran, a species known for careful thought and patient wisdom. His people had helped build the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago, creating a civilization where disputes were solved with words instead of weapons. In all his decades of service, he had never felt terror like this. "The signal is confirmed," he said, his voice barely steady. "It came from the Sol system. They have broken the light barrier." The chamber erupted in panicked sounds. Clicks, whistles, harmonic vibrations, and translated voices all mixed together in chaos. G1, the eldest member from the Threnian collective, raised one of her 4 arms for silence. Her species lived for centuries, and she had seen many crises. But even her ancient eyes showed worry now. "How is this possible?" she asked. The interdiction field was supposed to last another 500 years. They should not have this technology yet. Tae-Min pulled up the old files, the ones that every council member had hoped never to see again. Images appeared in the holographic display above them. A blue and green world, beautiful from a distance. Then closer views that made several species turn away in horror. "Earth," Tae-Min said. "Classified as a Class 9 death world. The highest danger rating in our records." The images showed creatures that defied logic. Massive beasts with teeth like daggers, hunting in packs. Flying predators that could spot prey from impossible distances. Ocean dwellers larger than most starships, with enough power to crush submarines. And everywhere, plants that poisoned, animals that killed, weather that destroyed. "The dominant species calls themselves humans," Tae-Min continued. He showed images that made the council whisper in disbelief. Bipedal creatures with forward-facing eyes, the mark of a predator. They stood upright on a world where gravity was twice what most species considered survivable. Their bones were dense, their muscles packed with power, their endurance beyond measure. "They hunt for sport," Tae-Min said, showing ancient images recovered from Earth's early transmissions. Humans tracking animals across vast distances, following them for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They are pursuit predators. They don't have speed or claws or venom. They simply never stop chasing. A council member from the Drexian Republic, a small being that looked like floating ribbons of light, spoke up nervously. "Surely they have evolved past such behavior? Many species have predator ancestry." Tae-Min shook his head slowly. He showed more images. Humans eating flesh. Humans drinking the milk of other species, something no other known race did. Humans consuming fermented plant matter and bacterial colonies, calling it food. Their cities built on the bones of extinct animals. Their history written in blood and fire. They survived 6 mass extinction events on their world, Tae-Min said. Each time, their numbers dropped to almost nothing. Each time, they came back stronger. They crossed frozen wastelands, burning deserts, and endless oceans. They built civilizations, destroyed them in wars, then built them again. Their planet tried to kill them in every possible way, and they refused to die. Zhu-1 studied the data with growing concern. Their atmosphere is 21% oxygen. That level is toxic to most of us. It causes fires to burn with terrifying intensity. Their world uses it as an energy source. And their gravity, another member added, 1.0 standard. Most of our species evolved on worlds with half that pull. Their bodies are built like military armor, just to survive standing up. Tae-min brought up the most disturbing files. When our survey team first discovered them 500 years ago, they were already splitting atoms for weapons. They had circled their world with satellites that could destroy entire cities. They had disease organisms weaponized in laboratories. They were decades away from leaving their star system, and they were already planning ways to kill each other more efficiently. The council fell silent. Every member remembered the decision made that day, 5 centuries ago. The unanimous vote to place an interdiction field around the Sol system, making it invisible to their own instruments, preventing any faster-than-light travel. It was a quarantine. The hope was simple and grim. Maybe humanity would destroy itself before it could threaten the galaxy. They call their world Earth, Tae-min said quietly. But our survey team had another name for it. They called it Hell. G1 accessed the original survey report, reading passages aloud. The humans have a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." This appears to be their entire evolutionary philosophy. They domesticated wolves, apex predators, and turned them into companions. They consume plants that evolved chemical weapons against being eaten. They exercise by deliberately damaging their muscles so they grow back stronger. They are, in every measurable way, a species that thrives on adversity. What do we do? Asked a young council member, barely old enough to understand the weight of this moment. Tae-min looked at the image of Earth floating above them, that beautiful blue marble hiding such terrible life. We hoped we would never have to answer that question. We hoped they would stay in their system forever, or perhaps destroy themselves as so many violent species do. But they have surprised us. They have achieved faster-than-light travel. Can we strengthen the interdiction field? Someone suggested desperately. It would take years to build generators strong enough, Tae-min replied. And if they have already broken the light barrier, they may detect the field. They may interpret it as an act of war. The word hung in the air like poison. War. The council had not seen real war in millennia. Disputes were handled through negotiation, trade agreements, cultural exchange. Violence was something primitive species engaged in before they learned better ways. But humans were violence incarnate. They were the nightmare evolution created when it wanted to test if intelligence could emerge from a world designed to kill. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. Humanity had survived, thrived, and now reached for the stars. We must prepare, G1 said, her ancient voice heavy with sorrow. Alert the border systems. Begin evacuation protocols for worlds near the Sol sector. And someone must draft a message in case they try to make contact. What do we tell them? Asked another member. G1 looked at the image of Earth one more time, at the death world that had birthed something the galaxy had never seen before. We tell them to stay away. We tell them the galaxy is not ready for them. We tell them anything that might buy us time to decide what to do when the apex predators finally leave their hunting ground. The council dispersed in fear, each member carrying the weight of knowledge that changed everything. Humanity was coming. The Death Worlders were loose, and no one knew if the galaxy would survive the encounter. The ship cut through space like a knife through water, its engines burning bright against the darkness. The indomitable spirit was humanity's pride, the first vessel built specifically for exploration beyond their home system. Its hull gleamed with fresh paint, and along its side, the flags of Earth's United Nations flew in holographic display. Captain Hyun-woo sat in the command chair, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray at his temples, someone who had spent 20 years in Earth's Space Navy before being chosen for this mission. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Any response to our broadcasts? Hyun-woo asked. Dayun checked her communications panel and shook her head. She was small and quick, a former fighter pilot whose reflexes were legendary back home. Nothing yet, Captain. We've been broadcasting friendship messages in 47 languages for 3 weeks now. Either nobody's out here, or they're not interested in talking. Soon Ho looked up from his science station, pushing his glasses higher on his nose. Oh, someone's out here. I'm picking up electromagnetic signals, consistent with advanced civilization. Multiple sources, in fact. There are people in this region of space. They're just not answering us. Haiyan Wu frowned. Before leaving Earth, they had discussed many possibilities. Hostile aliens were one option. Indifferent aliens were another. But aliens who clearly existed but refused to even acknowledge their presence. That was strange. Maybe our messages aren't getting through? Pi Yun suggested. Different technology? Different formats? We're broadcasting on every frequency imaginable, Sung Ho replied. Radio, laser, subspace, quantum entanglement pulses. If they have receivers, they're getting our messages. They're choosing not to respond. Haiyan Wu made a decision. Continue broadcasting. And Haiyan, plot a course toward the nearest signal source. If they won't talk to us from a distance, maybe they'll be more friendly when we can wave at them in person. What Haiyan Wu didn't know was that his broadcasts were causing panic across a dozen star systems. The messages themselves were peaceful enough, but the power levels were staggering. Human communications equipment built to punch through solar. Radiation and the interference of a busy home system was broadcasting with enough strength to be considered military grade by galactic standards. To the civilizations receiving them, it looked like someone was screaming into their homes. Worse, the ship itself was terrifying. The indomitable spirit was built to Earth Navy specifications, which meant it could survive micrometeorite impacts, radiation storms, and the occasional weapons test. Its armor was thick, its shields powerful, and its reactor ran hot enough to make galactic engineers nervous just looking at the readings. To humans, this was normal safety engineering. To everyone else, it looked like a warship. 3 days later, Bayoon's sensors lit up. Captain, we've got company. 6 vessels just dropped out of FTL, 2 million kilometers ahead. Finally, Haiyan Wu said with a smile, open a channel. Let's say hello properly. But on the Valoran patrol flagship, Commander Kethix was not smiling. His 3 eyes were wide with terror as he watched the human ship approach. It's moving directly toward us. Attack pattern, maximum speed. Sir, their weapons are powered down, his tactical officer reported. They're broadcasting what sounds like greetings. It's a trick, Kethix said, his voice shaking. Deathworlders are cunning. They lure you into feeling safe. Then they strike. Battle stations. Prepare to fire. On the indomitable spirit, Sung Ho frowned at his readings. Captain, the alien ships are powering weapons. I think there might be a misunderstanding here. Haiyan Wu stood up. Broadcast on all channels. Tell them we mean no harm. We're explorers, not soldiers. Dayun did as ordered, but her hands moved to the helm controls by instinct. Years of combat training made her ready for anything. Kethix watched the human ship continue its approach and made a fatal decision. They're not stopping. Fire. Fire everything. Energy beams lanced across space, striking the indomitable spirit's shields. The humans were thrown sideways in their seats as the ship rocked from impact. We're under attack. Dayun shouted, already moving. Her hands flew across the controls, and the ship twisted in a maneuver that pulled 2 gravities of force. To her, it was uncomfortable. To any galactic pilot, it would have been lethal. Return fire? Asked the weapons officer, a young man named Kijun. Negative, Haiyan Wu ordered, gripping his chair as Dayun threw the ship through another evasive turn. We're not starting an interstellar war on our first day. Evasive action only. Get us out of range. The Valoran patrol watched in mounting horror as their weapons barely scratched the human ship's shields. Then the human ship moved. It accelerated and turned with impossible speed, pulling maneuvers that should have killed its crew from the forces involved. One moment it was directly ahead, the next it was above them, then behind, moving through space like a hunting predator. How is that possible? Cathix whispered. No crew can survive those accelerations. Unless they're from a high-gravity world, his tactical officer said quietly. Unless their bodies are built for it. The truth hit Cathix like cold water. The humans weren't using computer-controlled evasion. There was a living pilot making those decisions, moving that fast, thinking that quickly. And they were barely trying. The human ship could have destroyed his entire patrol without effort. Cease fire, he ordered. Retreat. Full speed. Get us away from them. The Valoran ships turned and fled, their faster-than-light drives engaging in seconds. They left the indomitable Spirit floating alone in space, its crew confused and shaken. What just happened? Sung Ho asked, checking his station for damage. We said hello, and they shot at us. Dayung brought the ship to a stop, her adrenaline still pumping. Whatever we did, we scared them. Did you see how fast they ran? Haiyan Wu sat back down heavily. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. In every simulation, every training scenario, they had practiced for hostile aliens or friendly aliens. But terrified aliens? That was new. Send a message to Earth, he said quietly. Tell them first contact has been made, and it didn't go well. Request instructions. The message would take weeks to reach Earth and weeks more for a reply to return. Until then, they were on their own, trying to figure out why the galaxy seemed afraid of them. Back on the Valoran flagship, Cathix was sending his own report to the Council. His hands shook as he recorded the message. Confirmed contact with human vessel. They are everything the old files warned us about. Fast, powerful, and utterly terrifying. They absorbed our full weapons output without damage. Their pilot survived accelerations that would kill any of us. And they showed restraint. They could have destroyed us, but they chose not to. He paused, thinking about that last part. The humans could have killed them all. One good shot would have done it. But they hadn't fired back. They had only dodged, only defended. Were the Deathworlders actually peaceful? Or was this some new kind of threat the galaxy had never encountered? Predators who were strong enough to kill, but smart enough to know when not to. Cathix didn't have answers, but he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity was here, and there was no stopping them now. On the indomitable Spirit, Haiyan Wu stared at the stars and wondered the same thing. Somewhere out there was a galaxy full of civilizations. And for some reason, they were afraid of humans. He needed to figure out why before this misunderstanding turned into something worse. His crew worked around him, checking systems and preparing for whatever came next. They were explorers, scientists, and dreamers who had traveled light years to meet new friends among the stars. Instead, they had found fear. And fear, as any student of human history knew, was the most dangerous thing in the universe. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by quantum communications and frightened messages. Humanity had made contact, and it had been a disaster. With each retelling, the story grew worse. In the markets of Praxis Station, traders whispered about the human ship that had destroyed an entire patrol fleet. On the garden worlds of the Threnian Collective, parents told their children to be good or the Deathworlders would come for them. In the military academies of the Drexian Republic, instructors analyzed the engagement and reached the same conclusion. Humanity could not be stopped by conventional means. Nobody mentioned that the humans had never fired a shot. Fear didn't care about facts. On Earth, in the presidential office, that overlooked the rebuilt city of New Geneva. President Min Seo read the reports with growing concern. She was a woman who had spent 40 years in diplomacy, negotiating peace treaties and trade agreements. She had ended 3 regional conflicts through patience and careful words. But this was different. This was an entire galaxy afraid of her species. How bad is it? She asked. Ambassador Jae-hyun stood by the window, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and red. He was younger than Min Seo, chosen for this position because he had studied every language Earth knew and prepared his whole life for contact with aliens. Now he wondered if all that preparation was useless. It's very bad, Madam President. We've intercepted communications from 14 different species. They're calling us Deathworlders, apex predators, the swarm that walks upright. There are refugee convoys fleeing systems near our space. 3 colonies have been evacuated entirely. Min Seo closed her eyes. We haven't done anything. We said hello, got shot at, and ran away. How does that make us the villains? Because they're looking at us through the lens of their own experience, Jae-hyun explained. Most galactic species evolved on low-gravity worlds with stable climates. They've never seen a planet like Earth. To them, we're monsters that somehow learn to use tools. Then we change their minds, Min Seo said firmly. We show them who we really are. Send out more ships. Peaceful missions. Scientific vessels, medical ships, cultural ambassadors. We flood them with so much friendship that they have to see the truth. But events were moving faster than diplomatic solutions. On the edges of human space, Merchant Captain B.O. Ray was learning just how deep the fear ran. Her small cargo ship, the Dancing Star, had picked up a distress signal from a damaged vessel. It was standard procedure to help anyone in trouble. B.O. Ra didn't hesitate. The alien ship was small, probably a family transport, and it was leaking atmosphere. B.O. Ray matched velocity, extended her docking tube, and cycled through the airlock. Inside, she found 3 aliens huddled in the corner of their cargo bay, wearing emergency pressure suits. The father, a being called Quillix with 6 limbs and soft blue fur, saw her and screamed. His mate grabbed their child and pushed it behind her body. They were shaking with pure terror. It's okay, Baora said gently, holding up her empty hands. I'm here to help. Your ship is dying. I can take you somewhere safe. Quillix made a sound that her translator rendered as sobbing. Please, please don't eat us. Take anything you want, but don't eat us. Baora felt sick. I'm not going to eat you. I'm human. We don't eat people. Lies, Quillix's mate hissed. Everyone knows Deathworlders consume other species. It's what you do. No, Baora said, fighting to keep her voice calm. Look, your child is sick. I can see it from here. Let me help. I have medicine. She reached for her medical kit, and all 3 aliens screamed. Quillix threw himself in front of his family, ready to die protecting them. Baora froze, suddenly understanding. Every move she made, every gesture of help, they saw as a threat. She was the monster in their nightmare. Slowly, very slowly, Baora sat down on the floor. She made herself small, non-threatening. She placed the medical kit on the ground and pushed it toward them, then backed away. The blue medicine is for fever, she said softly. The green one is for breathing problems. I'm going to sit here. You can use them or not. Your choice. But I promise, I just want to help. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then Quillix slowly reached for the medical kit. His hands shook as he opened it, as if he expected it to explode. When nothing bad happened, he gave the medicine to his child. The improvement was immediate. The child's breathing eased, its color improved. Quillix stared at the medicine, then at Baora, confusion replacing fear. You helped us, he said quietly. "You're a predator, a death worlder, but you helped us." "That's what people do," Ora replied. "When someone needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter what species they are." Over the next few hours, as Ba-Ra repaired their ship and shared her food and water, Quillix began to understand. The stories were wrong. Not completely. Humans were still frighteningly strong and came from a world that sounded like a nightmare. But they weren't evil. They were capable of kindness. "Why does the galaxy fear you so much?" Quillix asked. Bo-Ray thought about that. "Because we're different. We come from a hard world, so we grew up hard. But hardness isn't the same as cruelty. We learn to survive, but we also learn to protect others, to care for the weak, to help those who can't help themselves." "That's not what the Council says." "The Council doesn't know us," Biora said. "They saw our planet and our history and made assumptions. They didn't talk to us, didn't learn about us. They just locked us away and hoped we'd disappear." Quillix was quiet for a long time. Then he made a decision. "I need to tell people the truth. You saved my family. You're not monsters." But even as Quillix spread his message, even as he tried to tell anyone who would listen that humans were not the enemy, the fear continued to grow. Because while Biora was being kind to one family, the galactic military was preparing for war. In the council chambers, military commanders presented their plans. Admiral Tae-Yang, a decorated officer from the Carithian Defense Force, stood before the assembled leaders. "We cannot allow the Death Worlders to spread," he said firmly. "Every day they learn more about our space, our colonies, our weaknesses. We must act now while we still have the advantage of numbers." "What advantage?" G1 asked tiredly. "One human ship disabled 6 of ours without firing a shot. Which is why we must use overwhelming force," Tae-Yang replied. "We assemble the largest fleet in galactic history. 15 species, combined arms, planet cracker weapons. We blockade their system and give them a choice: stay in their space forever or face extinction." Tae-Min listened to the plan with a heavy heart. It would mean the end of everything the Council stood for. Peace through understanding. Cooperation instead of conflict. But what choice did they have? The humans were coming, and every instinct screamed that they were dangerous. "I want it noted," Tai-Min said quietly, "that we are about to threaten the species with genocide because we're afraid of them. Not because they've attacked us. Not because they've made demands. But because they exist, and we find that existence terrifying. Sometimes," Tae-Yang said coldly, "fear is wisdom." The vote was called. The Armada was approved. 15 species would send their finest ships to Sol System, and they would deliver an ultimatum to humanity: surrender your freedom, or die. On Earth, President Min-Seo received word of the approaching fleet. She stood on the balcony of her office, looking up at the sky where somewhere beyond the blue, hundreds of alien warships were gathering to threaten her world. "They're coming to destroy us," Jae-Hyan said. "What do we do?" Min-Seo thought about Bu-Ora and her kindness, about Hyan-Wu and his restraint, about the millions of humans who just wanted to explore and learn and make friends among the stars. Then she thought about humanity's history, all the times they had been threatened, all the times they had been told to submit or die. "We do what we always do," she said quietly. "We stand up. We defend our home. And we show them that humans don't surrender." The Armada gathered at the edge of the Sol System like a storm made of metal and fire. 300 ships from 15 different species, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could survive supernovas. Their crews numbered in the millions. Admiral Tae-Yang stood on the bridge of his flagship, the pride of Corythia, and looked at the yellow star ahead. Somewhere around that sun was Earth, the death world that had spawned humanity. He felt no joy in what was about to happen, but he believed it was necessary. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Send the message," Tae-Young ordered. "Make it clear. They submit to council authority, or we destroy their homeworld." The message was broadcast on every frequency, translated into the languages Earth had taught them. It was not diplomatic. It was an ultimatum. Humanity had 3 hours to respond. What Tae-Young didn't expect was what happened next. The space around the Armada suddenly filled with ships. Not a few ships. Not a dozen. Hundreds of human vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel, surrounding the Council fleet in a sphere of steel and fury. They came from Mars, from Luna, from Europa and Titan, in a dozen orbital shipyards. They came from the asteroid belt, where mining colonies had been retrofitted into warships. They came from everywhere, and they came ready to fight. On the dreadnought Defiant Earth, Captain Su-Jin sat in her command chair and smiled grimly. She was a veteran of the Resource Wars, the last great conflict humanity had fought among themselves. She had sworn never to fight again. But threatening her homeworld? That changed everything. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's talk to these people." Her face appeared on every council ship's screen. She was not young, with scars on her face and gray in her hair. She looked tired, but her eyes were hard as diamonds. "This is Captain Su-Jin of the Human Defense Force. You have entered our system with weapons charged and threats ready. You have 3 minutes to power down and explain yourselves. After that, we will consider you hostile, and we will respond accordingly." On the Pride of Corythia, Tae-Young stared at the human fleet in shock. His ships outnumbered them, but not by much. Where had they all come from? Earth was supposed to be barely space-capable. These vessels looked like they had been built for war. "Admiral," his tactical officer said nervously, "their weapons are locked on us. All of them. They have firing solutions on every ship in our fleet." "How is that possible?" "We just arrived. Their targeting systems are faster than ours. Much faster." Tae-Young made a quick decision. "This is Admiral Tae-Young of the Galactic Council Defense Force. We are here to enforce a council resolution. You are ordered to stand down and accept our terms." Su-Jin laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. "You come to my home. You threaten my world. And you think you can give me orders? Admiral, you have made a serious mistake today." "We have 300 ships," Tae-Young replied, trying to sound confident. "You are outnumbered. Surrender, and no one needs to die." "You have 300 ships," Su-Jin agreed, "built for low-gravity species, with crews that can't survive high acceleration. We have 200 ships built on a high-gravity world, with crews that evolved to survive the worst conditions in the galaxy." "Admiral, do the math." Before Tae-Young could respond, one of the human ships moved. Fighter pilot Ha-Jun, flying a small craft called a Raptor, decided to make a point. He broke formation and accelerated toward the Council fleet at full thrust. His ship pulled 8 gravities of force, the Council sensors, watched in disbelief as the human pilot not only survived the acceleration, but performed combat maneuvers at that speed. He wove through their formation like a needle through cloth, so close to their ships that he could have touched them. Then he was gone, back to the human lines before anyone could target him. "Did you see that?" Someone whispered on the Council command channel. Ha-Jun's voice came over the radio, laughing. "That was me being gentle. Want to see what I can do when I'm trying?" On the Defiant Earth, Engineer Yun-Hee watched her reactor temperatures climb into the red zone and didn't even blink. By galactic standards, the ship should be melting. By human standards, this was just a warm-up. Earth's engineers built everything to survive worst-case scenarios, because Earth taught them that worst-case scenarios happened all the time. The standoff continued. Neither side wanted to fire first, but neither side would back down. Tae-Yong knew that if shooting started, it would be a massacre. The question was, whose massacre would it be? Then something unexpected happened. A council cruiser, damaged by a reactor malfunction, began venting atmosphere. It was a catastrophic failure, the kind that killed everyone aboard in minutes. The ship's distress call went out automatically. On the defiant Earth, Sujin didn't hesitate. Rescue team, deploy immediately. Get those people out. Captain, her tactical officer said, they're the enemy. They're people in danger, Sujin replied. Move. Human rescue ships broke formation and raced toward the dying cruiser. They docked, cut through sealed doors, and pulled out survivors. Council crews who had been preparing to fight humans minutes ago now found themselves being carried to safety by the same Deathworlders they feared dot on the pride of Corythia. Tae-Yang watched in confusion. Why are they helping us? Maybe, his tactical officer said quietly, because that's what they do. The rescued crew was brought aboard human medical ships. Doctors like Young-hee, who had studied alien biology from the few files Earth possessed, did their best to treat injuries and calm fear. The aliens were terrified at first, but the humans were gentle, patient, and surprisingly competent. One young officer, barely more than a child by his species standards, stared up at Young-hee with wide eyes. You're not going to hurt us? Of course not, Young-hee said, adjusting his oxygen mix. You're hurt. We help hurt people. That's what doctors do. But you're from a death world. I'm from Earth, Young-hee corrected. And yes, it's a tough planet. But that taught us to be strong, so we could protect the weak. You're weak right now, so we protect you. Simple. The young officer didn't understand, but he was alive. And that was enough. The rescue operation changed something in the standoff. Council ships watched humans risk their own lives to save enemies. They watched Deathworlders show compassion when they could have shown cruelty. It didn't make sense according to everything they had been told. Tae-Yang found himself rethinking the situation. If humans were truly mindless predators, they would have let his crew die. If they were conquerors, they would have used the accident as an excuse to attack. Instead, they had helped. Why? Meanwhile, on Earth, President Min Seo watched the standoff from the command center deep beneath New Geneva. She had given orders that no human ship would fire first, no matter what. But she had also made it clear that if the Council attacked, Earth would respond with everything it had. Madam President, Jae-hyun said, the Council Admiral is requesting a direct communication with you. Put him through. Tae-Yang's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and tired, nothing like the confident warrior who had led the Armada here. President Min Seo, we need to talk. I'm listening, Min Seo replied. You saved my crew. Your people rescued them when you could have let them die. When you should have let them die, strategically speaking. Why? Min Seo chose her words carefully. Admiral, I'm going to tell you something about humans. We come from a hard world. A world that tried to kill us every day. We survived by being strong, yes, but also by working together, by helping each other, by protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. That's not weakness, Admiral. That's what makes us strong. You're predators. Yes, Min Seo agreed. But we're also caretakers. We're hunters who became farmers. Warriors who became builders. We carry both within us, the capacity for violence and the capacity for compassion. And we choose compassion whenever we can. Tae-Yang was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised everyone. I think we made a mistake. Coming here. Threatening you. We let fear guide us instead of wisdom. Fear is natural, Minzio replied, but it doesn't have to control us. Admiral, humanity doesn't want war. We want to explore, to learn, to make friends among the stars. But we will defend our home if we must. The choice is yours. The Admiral looked at his fleet, at the human ships surrounding them, at the rescued crew members being treated with kindness by the species he had come to threaten. He had a choice to make. Fire on Earth and start a war that might destroy both sides. Or take a chance on peace with the Death Worlders. It was the hardest decision of his life, at the moment stretched like glass about to break. Two fleets faced each other across the darkness of space, weapons ready, crews tense. One wrong word, one nervous finger on a trigger, and the Sol system would become a grave for millions. Then Captain Haiyan Wu did something that nobody expected. His ship, the Indomitable Spirit, broke from the human formation and moved slowly toward the Council fleet. No weapons charged. No shields raised. Just a single ship, vulnerable and alone, approaching the Armada. Captain, what are you doing? Dayun asked, her voice tight with worry. Showing them who we are, Haiyan Wu replied calmly. Sometimes words aren't enough. Sometimes you have to take a risk. On the Pride of Corythia, Admiral Taeyang watched the human ship approach and felt his heart's race. Was this an attack? A trick? Then he saw the ship's weapons were completely powered down. The human captain was making himself a target, completely defenseless. It's a gesture of peace, his tactical officer said quietly. He's showing trust. Haiyan Wu's face appeared on Taeyang's screen. The human captain looked tired but determined. Admiral, may I come aboard your ship? Face to face, no weapons, no threats. Just two people talking. What do you say? Every military instinct, Taeyang had screamed no. This was the enemy. You didn't invite the enemy onto your flagship. But something about the human's expression, the genuine hope in his eyes, made Taeyang hesitate. Maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong about everything. Come aboard, Taeyang heard himself say. But slowly, and your crew stays on your ship. 20 minutes later, Haiyan Wu stood in the Council flagship's docking bay. He was tall, taller than any being there, and his muscles showed the effects of growing up in Earth's heavy gravity. The Council crew backed away from him instinctively, fear written on their alien faces. Haiyan Wu raised his hands peacefully and smiled. Hello, I'm Captain Haiyan Wu from Earth. It's nice to finally meet you all properly. Taeyang approached, and the two leaders studied each other. The Admiral was shorter, his body slim and graceful in the way of low-gravity species. The human was broader, denser, built like a fortress. They were so different, yet something in their eyes was the same. They were both soldiers who had seen too much war. Why did you come here? Taeyang asked. Because talking is better than fighting, Haiyan Wu replied simply. Admiral, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. You're afraid of us, and I need to understand why. They talked for hours. Taeyang showed Haiyan Wu the Council files on Earth, all the reasons humanity had been classified as dangerous. The hostile environment, the predatory evolution, the history of wars. Haiyan Wu listened to all of it and didn't argue. He couldn't. It was all true. We are predators, Haiyan Wu admitted. We do come from a world that tried to kill us. Our history is full of violence. But that's not all we are, Admiral. Let me show you. He pulled up files from Earth, not the wars or the weapons, but everything else. Hospitals where humans healed strangers without asking for payment. Wildlife preserves where humans protected endangered species, sometimes risking their own lives to save animals that had no value except existing. Art and music and literature that explored morality, compassion, justice. The billions of small kindnesses humans showed each other every day. We learned to be strong because we had to be, Haiyan Wu explained. But we also learned to be kind, to work together, to build instead of just destroy. Yes, we can fight, but we'd rather build. We'd rather help. We'd rather be friends. Taeyang looked at the images of Earth's cities, the green spaces and clean water, the children playing in parks, protected by laws humans had written themselves. You could have conquered your world. The strong could have enslaved the weak. Why didn't you? Because we learned something important, Haiyan Wu said. Being strong isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting them. Real strength is choosing mercy when you could choose cruelty. That's what separates us from the animals we evolved from. Back in the council chambers, Tamin watched a live feed of the conversation. Around him, other council members were watching too. They saw the human captain speaking passionately about peace, saw Admiral Taeyang listening with growing understanding. And slowly, very slowly, their fear began to crack. G-1, the ancient diplomat, spoke quietly. Perhaps we were too hasty. We judged an entire species on their biology and never gave them a chance to show us their character. On the human medical ships, Dr. Young-hee was making her own breakthrough. The rescued council crew had been terrified at first, but hours of gentle treatment had shown them the truth. These Deathworlders were healers. Young-hee worked tirelessly, studying alien biology in real time, adapting human medicine to work for species she had never seen before. A young council officer named Prexith watched her work with growing amazement. His species had medical technology, of course, but it was cautious and slow. Young-hee attacked problems with aggressive confidence, the same way a human might face any challenge. She tried things, failed, adjusted, and tried again until she succeeded. How do you learn so fast? Prexith asked. Young-hee smiled. Because on Earth, if you don't learn fast, you die. Our planet taught us to adapt or perish. So we learned to adapt very, very well. But you use that ability to heal, not to hurt. Of course, Young-hee said, as if it was obvious. What good is strength if you don't use it to help people? The real turning point came when Quillix, the refugee whose family Bo-Ra had saved, arrived at the council chambers. He had traveled for weeks to get there, determined to tell his story. The council gave him 5 minutes to speak. He used every second. He told them about the disabled ship, about his certainty that death had come for his family, about the human who had saved them, who had shown kindness when she could have shown cruelty. He showed them recordings of Bo-Ra, sharing her food, fixing their ship, playing with his child to make them smile. I thought humans were monsters, Quillix said, his voice breaking. The whole galaxy thinks they're monsters. But I was wrong. We are all wrong. They are not monsters. They are people. Strange people, strong people, sometimes scary people. But people who can be kind. People who choose to be kind. The chamber was silent when he finished. Then G1 stood, her ancient body moving slowly. I move that we revoke the resolution threatening humanity. I further move that we offer them a seat on this council, as equals among the galactic community. The vote was not unanimous. Fear was a hard thing to overcome. But it passed, and with it, everything changed. Admiral Taeyang and Captain Haiyan Wu shook hands in the human custom, sealing a peace treaty that would reshape the galaxy. Taeyang would later say it was like shaking hands with a machine designed to crush steel. But Haiyan Wu had been gentle, careful not to hurt him. We will need time, Taeyang said. The galaxy won't stop being afraid overnight. We know, Haiyan Wu replied. We'll be patient. We'll show you who we really are, one day at a time. President Min Seo addressed Earth from the same office where she had prepared for war. Today, "We made peace," she said. "Not because we were weak, not because we surrendered, but because we showed the galaxy that humans can choose peace even when we're strong enough to choose war. This is our first step into a larger universe, and we take it with hope." The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Human engineers helped galactic species reinforce their structures against disasters. Human doctors shared medical knowledge that saved millions. Human artists and musicians and writers began cultural exchanges that enriched both sides. And slowly, the fear faded. On a neutral station built specifically for the purpose, Su Jin sat down to dinner with Admiral Te Young. They ate food from both their worlds and talked about military tactics, finding surprising common ground. They became, if not friends, then at least respectful colleagues. Te Young taught alien pilots how humans flew ships, carefully adjusting the lessons so they wouldn't kill themselves trying to match human G tolerance. Hajun became famous across the galaxy as the pilot who had danced through an entire fleet, and he loved every second of the attention. Prexith applied to study medicine on Earth, becoming the first alien exchange student. Young He personally sponsored his application and promised to show him around. He was nervous about the high gravity and the dangerous wildlife and the weather that could kill, but he was more excited than afraid. And in a small colony on the edge of human space, Biora opened a shipping company that specialized in helping alien refugees. Quillix worked with her, translating and mediating, building bridges between species. The Dancing Star became famous as the ship whose captain had shown the galaxy that humans were more than their reputation. The story of first contact would be told and retold across the galaxy for generations. How humanity had been feared, how they had been misunderstood, and how they had proven themselves not through conquest, but through compassion. The Deathworlders had arrived, and yes, they were terrifying. They were strong and fast, and incredibly dangerous when threatened, but they were also capable of incredible kindness. They defended the weak, helped the helpless, and chose peace when they could have chosen war. They were everything the galaxy had feared, and everything it needed. Haiyan Wu stood on the bridge of the indomitable spirit, looking at the stars that were now open to humanity. Somewhere out there were millions of worlds, billions of beings, and endless possibilities. The galaxy was no longer afraid, or at least not as afraid. And humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by proving they were harmless, but by proving that being powerful didn't mean being cruel. "Where to, Captain?" Dayun asked. Haiyan Wu smiled. "Everywhere. We have a whole galaxy to explore and new friends to meet. Let's see what's out there." The ship jumped to faster than light, carrying humanity forward into a future that was no longer written in fear, but in hope.